is Stacy on the Right. Here's your host, Stacy Washington.
Indeed it is. It's Stacy on the Right. And I'm live and direct to you, 866-95-PATRIOT, if you want to join the program. Welcoming in, for the last time in 2023, Jessica Milan Patterson, chair of the California Republican Party, at Milan Patterson on Twitter. Jessica, thank you for coming on tonight.
Oh, happy to be with you and happy to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I was like, yes, Jessica incoming. I was reading a quote from you in one of the newsletters that I get, and I was like, I know her. Yeah, that sounds exactly like something she'd say.
I was probably talking some trash.
I love it. I love it so much. So let's get into this. There's so much going on. And all of this with the backdrop of 2024 and Gavin Newsom as the kind of shadow 2024 Democrat presidential nominee or candidate, I should say. It's recently been a very embarrassing moment, in my opinion, for him, because he had, as mayor of San Francisco, a 10-year plan to end homelessness there. Well, that was 20 years ago, and they're now spending $20 billion a year on homelessness and still no end in sight.
Yeah, I mean, we've spent a total of $20 billion here in California. So he has literally taken his failures in San Francisco. We should be wishing him a happy 10-year anniversary on completing the task that you set out to accomplish, which was to end homelessness in San Francisco. Unfortunately, we are saying happy anniversary to 20 years where you are not only over timeline, but you're over budget on trying to fix this problem. And what's his answer? His answer is, let's throw more money at it. Despite saying that he owned the homeless crisis here in California as the governor, the buck stopped with him. He has just last week said to the counties, you need to start doing your job on this. It doesn't sound like he's really owning what his responsibility in all of this is.
So not only is he not owning it, but it's a little like the numbers adding up with a 10-year plan that was 20 years ago. And he's out, going to China and meeting with the heads of state there as if he's a president, kind of going outside of his purview and above his station as the governor of California. He's doing a lot of things to make himself seem presidential. And this one just hits right where it hurts for him.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Last week he was in New York City, rubbing elbows with donors, but also on late night television. And one thing is coming out of his mouth. The next thing that comes out are these HUD numbers, right? We have now an increase of about 5.8%, almost 6% in our homeless crisis in just the last year. We already have 30% of the nation's homeless that reside in California. When you talk about unsheltered people, that's up to 50% of the nation's unsheltered people are right here in California. And he's trying to talk about how this, story of, people leaving California because of quality of life issues just is some sort of myth. And the reality is, while all of this is going on, he also had the announcement of $68 billion deficit for the California budget. And we are coming off just 2 years ago having a $100 billion surplus. We saw in 2022 alone, over 700,000 people leave our state. What does that mean? They are taking their high income earners are leaving California, and that revenue is not coming into California. Why are they doing it? Stacey, it's not because the views of our oceans or our mountains or our beautiful valleys have changed. It is the policies that California Democrats and Gavin Newsom have championed here in California, and that is the reason why these people are leaving our state.
So population outflow is usually a direct result of poor leadership and, the kind of conditions that Americans, you look around, you see people in other states have a better quality of life. But usually it's you go to visit family someplace, you go take a vacation someplace and you think, can this be real? Because it's so different from where you live. And California has the weather, it has the people, it has the size, it has, proximity to the ocean. It's just there's not a lot you can take away from California. So you really have to be managing it to the very worst of your abilities to make that many people leave.
You're absolutely right. And that is exactly what we have seen here over this last decade. We, for the first time in our state's history, lost a congressional seat in the 2020 reapportionment. Depending on which statistics you're looking at, we are on track to lose 4 or 5 additional seats come the 2030 reapportionment if we continue down the path that we are. And what does that mean? If we want something different here in California, we're going to have to vote differently. And more than that, we have to make sure that Gavin Newsom doesn't take the failures that he had as mayor of San Francisco, the failures that he's had as governor of California, and get a promotion to the White House. We need to make sure that that is stopped.
Stopped dead in its tracks. So what does that look like in 2024 with Gavin Newsom kind of playing both sides? He's obviously wants to be the nominee, but Democrats are very strongly behind Biden at this point. And everyone keeps saying there's going to be a surprise, but I'm not so sure, Jessica.
Well, I don't know that everybody is exactly behind Biden. We did see some really, really bad poll numbers over the last few weeks. In fact, President Biden is out there saying we're just not seeing any of the good ones. I think we're all open to seeing whatever you got on this, but it's something that is reported on pretty widely. So I don't know that necessarily Democrats are behind him. What I would say is that they are probably trying to find a graceful way for President Biden to exit out of this race. What we also saw this week is that President Biden's numbers are so bad that Kamala Harris actually had better poll numbers than him this week, only by 1 point, so within the margin of error. But that's how bad it is for Democrats right now. They're watching every single one of our Republican candidates is beating President Biden. And so they know if they want to hold on to the White House, President Biden really isn't going to be the ticket for that.
Yep. And if there's anything, then if it's Gavin Newsom, let's talk about that. For presidential aspirations, I find him extraordinarily unlikable. But what do you see as his strong points, if any, if he were to become the Democrats' nominee?
Listen, Stacey, he doesn't do it for me either. But what I will say is that despite all of these failures that we've discussed over the years, when we talk about the failing education, he kept our schools closed longer than any other state in the nation. And we are seeing the real ramifications, not all of them, but some real ramifications right now. Less than 50% of our children are reading at grade level. When it comes to math and science, less than a third. We've seen crime increase ridiculously here in California. Violent crimes up 13%. Meanwhile, places like Florida, it's down 31%. When we're talking about the homeless crisis, which we've discussed at length here in California, this has been something $20 billion. 20 years he's been working on it, and it's only gotten worse here in California. Despite all of those very real failures of this governor and California Democrats, he still gets elected. Some people find him incredibly charming. They think that he is a smooth-talking salesman, and they fall for his shtick every single time. So he is a master campaigner. We need to make sure that we are educating people on what the results of this guy actually are.
So I appreciate that analysis and rundown of because you live there, and I agree with you. He does nothing for me, but I've also seen so many people say, "Oh, he's presidential. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that." And I'm not sure who they're looking at or who they're talking about, but they appear to be talking about Gavin Newsom, which means there are people who would say, "Oh, he's younger. He's the future of the Democrats," and they would vote for him not because he's great at being governor, but because he's not Biden. And Democrats have to be thinking that through. So can we turn to what is now, it looks like an epidemic, 12 states considering removing President Trump from the ballot for the 2024 contest or the primary. It's kind of unbelievable because there's been no conviction of him of anything. And it's not constitutional yet. These 12 states are thinking about doing it. Where do you see this going?
I think it's going nowhere. I mean, I think it'll probably go to the Supreme Court, and I don't see any circumstance where you can't get all 9 justices to agree that this is absolute election interference at its worst. I can give you a great example, and you'll probably remember it because I think you were reporting on it at the time. The California legislature tried to keep President Trump off of the ballot in the 2020 election cycle. And we took them to court. I took the Secretary of State to court. In fact, many of the statements today are referencing Patterson v. Padilla, where our court, our state Supreme Court in California, unanimously said that what the Democrats were doing in the legislature was absolutely unconstitutional. And so, this is the same play, but a different day for Democrats. And what's so laughable to me and hypocritical, Stacey, is that they scream and shout in democracy and that. And your answer is to take your political opponents off the ballot? How is that democracy? It is just absolutely hypocritical to me when you have the far left screaming about democracy and then in the same breath saying taking him off the ballot was absolutely part of our democratic process. It's ludicrous.
It is. And I love that you're bringing back to our minds the case where you were a named party in, where you won because things that were being done were not constitutional. So it's not about our opinion of President Trump or even Biden. It's not about future actions that might be taken to take other people off of the ballot, which, we actually don't want to get to a place in this country where we're ungovernable, where we don't have processes that everyone trusts for elections or for, primaries or that type of thing. Democrats are playing with fire by doing this. And thank God we can really look to the Supreme Court to have a good decision here. Nothing's guaranteed, obviously, but I do agree with you. I feel like they're going to decide in favor of the Constitution.
And we need to get there. We absolutely need to get there. I think that is the absolute bedrock of our republic. And we need to get to a place where everyone on that Supreme Court, this is not a hard one. They should be able to easily get there if they believe in the Constitution.
I agree. And it would be very heartening for the entire country to see all of the justices stand together to kind of smack this down once and for all. Jessica Milan Patterson, you are the chair of the California Republican Party, the lady you do not want to see in a named action against you because she's going to win, at Milan Patterson on Twitter. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Stacey.
All right. Have a great night.